one of the fellas before mentioned how many hours you put in the beginning. It's not a lie. You put in a lot of hours in the beginning, but that shows kind of like the passion of what it is you're trying to do. Always believe in like kind of what you're doing. I am a film director and producer. And I also run a Creative Commune called Out Since Tuesday. And essentially what we do is we link freelancers with brands and produce content across the board, whether that's graphics, film, photography, all that kind of stuff. We worked with brands like New Balance, Nike, Sky, Vevo, MTV, mostly creating content for all of them. If not, we would be doing a activation for them, whether that's like producing like an event and then packaging that into a nice activation for all of them kind of thing. I will show you a video that we've done. Some of you might know a show called Yo MTV Raps, which came out in the 80s, and they basically revamped it and then came out last year. So I directed that series, which was actually my first broadcast series, and then from there I was able to then filter in some of the crew that we have across the board into that production. So it kind of explains what we do in a way. So essentially it's kind of creative solutions in a way. So if someone comes to us and says, you know what, I really want to make this short film, then, and I'm just a writer and I don't really have the team to fill out kind of thing, then our thing is to be like, all right, cool. So we'll surround you with like creative professionals to be like, we'll give you a producer, we'll give you a director, we'll give you all of these other aspects to fill in the gaps kind of thing. So that's essentially what we do. We have like a studio in Woolwich, and so we kind of work out of that space, that anyone that comes into the space is able to then use our facilities, hang out. Our main thing is making sure that we're able to create the perfect space for a creative. Essentially, I come from like a freelance world, so I know exactly what it is that freelancers need and creatives need in order to create. So there's like a love-hate relationship between brands and creatives. So creatives kind of feel like that brands stunt their creative processes and stunt their growth as to design stuff and create stuff and all that kind of. Creatives are crazy, so they need to be kind of babied in a way. Me myself especially. So, and kind of brands kind of feel like creatives are unreliable, so then it might not deliver on time because their creative processes take quite long, or they have to go through the stages and all that kind of stuff. So what we do is we kind of act as an incubator for the creative, so then we can actually make sure they deliver on time, make sure they're happy, all that kind of stuff. Also keeping the brand at bay and being like, don't worry, it's going to get delivered on time because we have all these creative professionals around. So that's essentially what we do kind of thing. So the way we kind of got into that was I actually started in production. So I started running for an MTV production company. And so I learned everything in terms of production through that company, and then started doing my own thing kind of thing, because I kind of saw a glass ceiling in terms of where I could go next and that sort of thing. So I ended up being like, you know what, there's a certain way to produce content, and creativity isn't free enough for me. In my opinion, creativity is like, it's stunted so much, and it's a problem. So our thing is to kind of make sure that creativity is always super free, super open, but also keeping within the boundaries of what it is that the client wants, whatever it is that the brand wants kind of thing. So for example, we did a activation for New Balance, and so we did a world tour. They were releasing a shoe called the 009, and so we did a tour, like a world tour, which was in Korea, New York, LA, Paris, and Berlin. And literally about 6 of us went from city to city in like all of those places, and then put on like an event. At the same time, we then did a photo shoot. At the same time, we also did a video, and we packaged it up, sent it back to them, and then that was their campaign. So one of our big aspects of the company is global marketing and being able to link, like being able to be a bridge for different for different sectors essentially, or for different brands and for different countries kind of thing, so they can all come together. I think in terms of what I would say in terms of setting up a company, I would say the most important thing is craft. It's like you can't really manage creatives if you don't know how they do what they do. So like everyone has a process, especially creatives. Like I said, we're crazy. So you have to understand what they do and how they do it, what their process is, in order to be able to manage them. So if you might not want to be an editor for the rest of your life, but you might want to be a manager. So you're like, all right, cool. I need to know how to edit. I need to know how they do these things, so then I know how I can manage that process, kind of thing. So I think that's kind of the main focus point for me in terms of learning, is like a big aspect of everything. You keep learning. Always work with people that are better than you. Always work with people that are better than you, so you can kind of keep it moving, kind of thing. Other than that, I think make sure you're surrounded by people that are passionate. Otherwise, there's no point. And you'll end up being bogged down by the fact that they might not be pulling their weight or whatever it is. I mentioned one of the fellas before mentioned how many hours you put in the beginning. It's not a lie. You put in a lot of hours in the beginning, but that shows kind of like the passion of what it is you're trying to do. Always believe in like kind of what you're doing. If you don't love it, it's never gonna formulate. It's never gonna come together. No one's gonna believe in what you're doing. In terms of funding, we're self-funded, and for us it was like, so our network is quite extensive. So we have about 170 creatives in UK. That's like from producers, directors, DOPs, across the board, really. And then like gaffers, sparks, everyone. Then in New York, we have about 50. Toronto, we have about 50. And then LA, we have about 30. So like our thing is, no matter where we are in the world, and anything comes up in terms of the creative problem, we're able to be like, we can solve it. Do you know what I mean? So we've actually moved from we were a production company before solely, until we realized that production companies are dying. And it's not because they're failing, it's actually because it's a saturated industry. So everyone's a production company. It's super easy to be a production company kind of thing. So our thing was to move into the space of being a creative commune where we can solve issues and bring people together a lot easier, because we love to collaborate. That's like the best part of our job kind of thing.
Life is what you make it. Sounds so simple, yet it turns out to be our biggest challenge. Passion, dreams, intention, action. Day by day, we create the world around us, making a statement. The world is our skate park. The challenge is really just believing it. Once you break out of this cycle, it's when you actually get to start living.
So this one's kind of interesting, because we started off doing the tour with like 6 of us, like doing whatever it is we're doing. As we were sending the stuff back to New Balance UK, that's when they put us in contact with New Balance Skate. So it kind of, we were kind of running up and down Sunset Boulevard shooting stuff and whatever it was, and then we came across skateboarders and stuff. So our thing was to kind of work in that realm. So like we were able to notice that there was a gap and then do a video for them, and it allowed us to end up doing a campaign with them.
Skateboarding is not a sport. It's a lifestyle, a movement, a way to do life. It changes the way you see the world around you. Everywhere you go, there's potential art to be made, because skateboarding is art.
We ran into some skateboarders, and they worked in like a shoe store. And so we were like, you know what, we're working with New Balance right now. And so we kind of wanted to talk to you about maybe doing like a taster video sort of thing. So we spoke to them, then spoke to New Balance Skate at their headquarters and told them about the tour that we were doing, and they loved it. So then we ended up shooting this, and it ended up being part of their campaign. So we ended up working with New Balance as a company, and then New Balance Skate, and they ended up pushing this one out as well. So I think the main thing is looking for gaps all over the place because they're everywhere, you know, and just make sure you're keeping open to everything.
You'll feel me now. I'm smoking more weed than before. I'm loving these women, I'm liking season the show. I'm loving these sinners, I wanna see you over more. But loving these winners, I don't give a fuck no more.
So basically, our main thing is is a community. So connecting with different freelancers. So a lot of the time, with most companies, it's the client is the most important, the brand is most important, all that kind of stuff. But for us, it's kind of the opposite. The creative is most important. So anyone that comes into our space, we want to make sure we put them in the best headspace to be able to create the most authentic content. So essentially, it's like I said, incubating their processes, so then we're able to be like, right, so you're pushing out the most authentic content. So we did a campaign for Prada, and we know very well that Prada wouldn't necessarily hire a 19-year-old photographer who's got a pop-in Instagram. So our thing really is to be like, right, so even though you wouldn't hire him off your own backs, what about if we surrounded him with creative professionals? So we'll surround him with like head of marketing, we'll surround him with producers, we'll surround him with the best editors and all that kind of stuff. And that way, people that actually have a authentic, content-driven kind of, like, they're part of the community anyway. So their content just seems to be really rich. Then we're able to make sure that they deliver on time. And we're able to make sure that their content is up to a standard that the brand will be happy with. That kind of thing. So that's essentially who we are. Any questions about us?
First and foremost, because it didn't include my key definition, my personal definition of what it is to be successful, which is doing what you love. And if I could title my talk anything today, it would be The Pursuit of Doing What You Love.
Number 1, be real. Number 2, don't give up. And number 3, write a plan. Like write down what you want.